what's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about some of the dumbest things that Americans have ever said to Norwegians. Oh boy. I'm both nervous and I'm a bit curious, to hear some of these stories. As an American, I am painfully aware of what we are capable of saying in complete ignorance. So let's take a look here at this Reddit discussion where somebody asked, what are the dumbest things an American has said to you? Norwegian edition. Oh boy, I don't know what we're gonna hear today, but let's see. Starting with, here's my story. I was an exchange student in Canada, and this woman from the United States came up to me and asked me where I'm from. I told her I'm Norwegian. So she said, "Oh, so you're Russian? I've always loved Russians." What? How? I don't know. I'm expecting some dumb things here today, but this is just... I mean, they said they're Norwegian. They told the American that they're Norwegian. And the American immediately goes, "Oh, you're Russian. I love Russians." I said, No, I'm not Russian. I'm from Norway." She answered, "But that's in Russia." See, this is the oh my gosh, this is painful. I'm sorry. This is the thing. Why do Americans say stuff like this so confidently? Like, oh man. I said, no, it's its own country in the Nordic region. She looked at me with pity and said, "Where is that, you think?" What? Why is she? Oh my gosh. I said, "Well, it's in Northern Europe." She laughed at me and answered, "No, dear, it's in Russia. Europe only has 5 countries." What? What? England, Scotland, Ireland, France, and Spain. This is, I mean, what can you even do at this point? At this point, you should just, walk away. This American is beyond helping. I looked at her, not knowing what to say. And at that point, her phone rang. She answered, and I heard her screaming into the phone, oh my God, Ryan, you won't believe what I just experienced. I met a student who says she's from Norway. She doesn't know that Norway is in Russia." This would be, I mean, you want to just walk away, but also this is so infuriating that, you almost want to say something to this person, but oh my God. She believes Norway is in Europe? This is cool. I've never met anyone who's brainwashed? Oh my God. Okay. That American is not just brainwashed, but completely delusional. Where did she learn? I'd love to know, is it our American education system? How do we go so wrong? How do Americans end up this way? I don't know. Wow. Okay. Let's keep going here. Oh boy, I met an American woman in her 50s. After learning I was Norwegian, she asked me, "Do you ever get tired of all those raids?" What? It must be quite tiresome. The raids? Raids. Norway is getting... Are you getting raided? What? I haven't heard about this. I asked, "What do you mean?" All those Vikings. All those Vikings living around and raiding and pillaging and pillaging the Vikings. Wow. Maybe this woman is a time traveler. Maybe this American is a time traveler. She was acting like this was a current problem, and Vikings and Norwegians were continuously fighting for the last 1,000 years. Oh, those, I replied. I hardly even notice those anymore. That is perfect. That's the best way to answer Americans who just say stupid stuff. This one was more funny. Uh, the raids. That first one was just infuriating, where that American was telling the Norwegian, "Oh, you're not from Norway. You're not in Europe." Like, what? 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 Oh. All right, let's listen. Here's some more stories. Dumbest things Americans have ever said to Norwegians. Oh boy. I grew up in northern Norway, and two stories come to mind from American tourists. Oh boy, American tourists. Like, Americans don't get outside of the United States very much. A lot of Americans never travel out of America. And those of us who do, we travel places and we just don't know anything about the world. So it's funny that Americans are so strongly opinionated on some things. During the summer, at night, the midnight sun often has a more orange hue than during the day. The American said, "How come you have two suns?" What? Yeah, the normal sun sets during the evening. And somehow you have an orange sun during the night as well? This is just sad. This is just sad. Like, how old is this American? If they were on vacation in Norway, this American was probably an adult. And they thought there were two suns? Like, really? Like, they're not joking? They think there's two suns? That's bad. That's not good. Man, this is concerning to me. I was already concerned about Americans. And probably the worst one. Oh, there's worse? There's worse than that? Oh my, worse than thinking there's two suns. An adult pair of Americans during the winter that were hell-bent on insisting that we turn on the aurora. That you turn it on? Like turn on the northern lights? Like you have control over that? Like, yeah, let me just flick this secret switch and have that. Let me flick this secret switch we have that alters nature itself. They had read ads that guaranteed they would see the aurora and somehow thought it was a light show that every northern Scandinavian country had made to attract visitors. Oh my, how do you travel all the way to northern Norway and not know what the northern lights are? Or not have watched a video on it? Or, and I mean, this is funny, honestly. This is, I don't know if this is worse than thinking there are two suns. Or if it's worse to think that that Norwegians have a giant switch that turns on the northern lights. Maybe you do. Hey, maybe you do. I don't know which is worse. They saw an ad that promised they would see the northern lights. Oh man. I mean, that's bad that the ad lied to them. But you should know as an adult, like, that's not how nature works. But why? I don't know. All right, let's keep going. A few years ago, I sat next to an older couple from Minnesota on a flight from Copenhagen to Bergen. As we approached the mainland, we could see the western coast of Norway. The American woman, asked me, quite shocked, "Do you guys have roads?" I mean, now most of these stories are actually pretty funny. Luckily, like, they're not Americans insulting Norwegians. It's just the stupidest things you can imagine. Do you have two suns? Can you turn on the aurora? Do you guys have roads? Like, what? I can't believe Americans aren't more embarrassed. That's the thing. I would be embarrassed. I would just keep my mouth shut if I didn't know something. Sadly, a lot of Americans, and we're kind of known for this, Americans are known for being very loud and opinionated, and we're not very afraid to voice our opinion. And that's how you get stuff like this happening. Americans saying the dumbest things out loud. No shame. No shame. Do you guys have roads? We thought the only type of transportation you guys had was boats. Well, okay, so Norway is kind of famous for ferries and stuff, and maybe even cruise ships. But to think that there's no roads, like, it's like Americans lack critical thinking or something. When I told them that we indeed had roads, she asked if I knew anybody that owned a car, as they feared they had to walk from the airport to the city center. Yes, Norway has cars. They did not believe me when I told them that they could take a taxi, a bus, or a tram. They didn't believe you? Well, forget it. You know, if you try to help Americans and the Americans are like, "No, you're wrong. I'm right." It's like, don't even help them anymore. Just whatever. Like that, I know that as an American here in America. Here in America, there's a lot of Americans saying very dumb, arrogant things, ignorant things. And we just learn to ignore those Americans. Just ignore them. It's fine. They'll survive somehow. They also got offended when I told them that we did not use dollars in Norway. That's disrespectful. That's just disrespectful. Going to another country, not learning anything about the culture, and then thinking, "Oh, I'm going to use American dollars because that's what everyone should use." That is offensive. That's not okay for Americans to say that. Effing cruise tourists. Oh my god. I bet Norwegians must get so many strange tourists, so many strange Americans, because I think Norway is somewhat popular for people to want to visit. It is known as a very cool place to visit. So that's unlucky. Norway probably gets a lot of Americans. But we get funny stories like this, so that's good. Not my story, but I've always found this funny, so I'll share it. A friend of mine worked as a guide at the reconstructed Iron Age farm in Stavanger. So she worked as a guide in a reconstructed farm in Stavanger, like a recreation of an old Norwegian farm. They dress up in Iron Age clothing. They show tourists how people might have lived there before using different tools. A nice American tourist asked my friend after the tour if they were allowed to leave the reservation, thinking that the guides lived there permanently. Well, this American almost sounds kind of nice. This American was concerned for the people working there. Like, can you go back to the hotel? Are you allowed to leave the farm? Are you allowed to use a cell phone? That's funny. That's kind of wholesome, honestly. Okay. Wait, what was this? Wait. I went there once, and I distinctly remember the opening line or joke for the tour being, "Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and Americans." Oh no. Oh no. So, do Americans already have like a reputation in Norway, like for being a little dumb, a little strange? Oh man. That's funny though. That's maybe we have earned that reputation. What else do we have? While chatting on the internet about 20 years ago, an American said, "Do you guys have internet in Norway?" That's funny. Apparently there's a lot of Americans who think Norway is still like living in the Iron Age, doesn't have internet, is attacked by Vikings on the daily. Okay. Americans are not up to date. Okay. What else? What is it like living in a socialist country? This, I am not surprised by this. I'm not surprised by this. I think a lot of Americans think that about like a lot of European countries, and don't understand like how the culture or the government actually works in Norway. So they'll be like, "What?" And they'll say this in a negative way. They'll be like, "What's it like living in a socialist country?" Like, yeah, Americans like talk about that in a very negative way. Mind you, This was on a boat tour in Hawaii. Me and my wife were talking to a couple in their 40s. This lady had the impression that the Nordics looked like Soviet Russia. Yeah, which probably is due to American media. I replied that I'm just a simple public servant and could still pretty easily afford this trip. Dollar was dirt cheap back then. Wow. So, oh my gosh, this American thought it was like Soviet Russia, basically. Yeah, Americans really, really, really don't understand what life is like in other countries. That's for sure. But it's one of the reasons, as an American, I enjoy learning about life in Norway, to break outside of our American bubble. What else? These are quite funny. Oh my gosh. I thought these were going to be mostly like irritating and really cringy. And they are kind of cringy. But a lot of these are just kind of funny because it's just Americans thinking, thinking like stuff that a child would think, basically. It's embarrassing. I was an exchange student. A girl once asked me why I was white if I was from Norway. Well, I would say Norwegians, like stereotypically, Norwegians are stereotypically like white and blonde hair. Like that's the stereotype, right? Norway is next to Korea. So you should look Asian? Why why are there so many stories here of Americans trying to convince Norwegians that Norway is not where it is? Norway is in Russia or Norway is in Korea. Why are Americans so hell-bent on talking of like convincing Norwegians they don't know where Norway is? Like, no, Norway is in Europe. It's in the north. No, it's not. I think she thought Norway and North Korea were the same thing. Oh my God. Yeah, this attitude. I hate this American attitude. No, it's not. I hate that. And of course, if you say you are from one country, Americans will say, oh my God, I'm Norwegian too. And my great great grandma was from there. Yes, Americans are obsessed with ancestry. Yes, that is true. Americans love to learn about that and do that mailing in your spit and learning about your ancestry and be like, I am 0.01% Scandinavian. That's what we're practically brothers and sisters. All right, what else do we have here? I grew up in the States. Oh, so this is a Norwegian who grew up in the States. I can mention a few things I've heard over the years. So do you guys have polar bears just walking the streets? This is kind of funny. These are kind of like just these are pretty harmless. What is Norway? Okay. That's the polar bears was funny, but what is Norway? That's like sad. Americans should be a little more educated on this stuff. That's embarrassing. Why doesn't everyone just speak English instead of your weird language? Oh my, that's sadly that is an American attitude a lot of people have. So you're from Norwegia? Do they have internet there? What? What is with this? What do they have internet there? A lot of that's funny. A lot of Americans apparently think Norway is really, really trapped in the Middle Ages. Yeah. Is there internet there? Um, that's funny. But I actually enjoyed this quite a bit. I was a bit nervous going into this, learning about the dumbest things Americans have said to Norwegians and about Norway. But I think for the most part, these were funny. There were a couple things here that were downright disrespectful, though. Um, a lot of Americans think Norway, and it's funny because Norway is so progressive. Norway is so technologically advanced and has all the electric cars and even like electric buses and boats and stuff. Like stuff we don't even have here in America. So the fact that Americans think Norway doesn't have internet is weird. And yeah, there were some rude things here for sure. Some ignorant things, some dumb, not shockingly, some dumb things. But there were also some pretty funny stories. Like, maybe that's the redeeming part of Americans saying our stuff unfiltered, is that you get funny stories on the internet. So for that reason, I actually enjoyed this. Anyway, if you enjoyed this as well, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment, perhaps with your experience of the dumbest thing an American has ever said to a Norwegian. That would be hilarious to hear about. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Norway and Norwegian culture, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching and see you next time.